الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. We reach a crossroads in the world today with differing opinions on differing incidents, and once again the takfiri head rises, where people begin to say, if this person does not do this, they will be going to the fire of hell. If that person doesn't do that, they will be going here or there. Not to understand what it is that is the criterion between entering paradise and being sent into the fire of hell. What is it that determines? What is the determining factor that either makes my actions accepted or renders them null and void? What is it? Is it if I don't wear a particular color on a particular day or support a particular decision? What is the determining factor that destroys my actions? And people start to delve. People say it's this concept, it's that concept. Yes, there are hadith that say this. There's a hadith that say that. That's right, but these hadith are taken in conjunction with other hadith. For example, you might have a hadith that speaks about the criterion. What differentiates between heaven and hell is a tawheed, belief in God. Those that have tawheed, those that believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, those that believe in one God that created the heavens and the earth, are the ones that enter paradise. And those that do not enter. Is this what the answer is? Even this in its understanding is incorrect, unless I understand what the point is. If you want to look at the root of it, if you want to go right into the actual thing that determines right from wrong, is what Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi says. He says the slightest or the least things that take someone into disbelief and into the fire of hell is when they are to say that a stone is a seed, or I could say a stone is a pip. You know the stone in the stone fruit, the pip. So for you to say an actual pebble is that stone in the fruit, or that stone in the fruit is a pebble. Yani for you to unkur or deny what is apparent. And if someone shows you something and you know it is so, and you reject this is kufr. And this is what differentiates. What makes a person right from wrong is if they reject what they know to be true, and they accept what they know to be false. And how many people on this planet you know that have done this? You only know about yourself, and you only know about who God has spoken to you about. For example, if I asked you, is Abu Lahab going to hell? You say, of course. How? بِنَصٍ مِّنَ الْقُرْآنِ. Allah mentions he goes to hell. If I asked you, is Abu Sufyan going to hell? You say yes. He was cursed by Rasulullah. He was someone, and Rasulullah according to us, does not curse people بالغلط. Although there's a chapter in Sahih Bukhari that says that there are people that the Prophet used to curse and he was wrong. You know? So the people that the Prophet oppressed by cursing, من سبهم ولعنهم رسول الله وهم ليس أو مستحقين بذلك. It's a whole chapter in Sahih Bukhari. People that the Prophet cursed that did not deserve it. So in other words, the Prophet was a shattam. He was swearing at people and they didn't even deserve it. This is the thing, whereas we have when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, La'natullah ala fulan ala Abi Sufyan, Allah has cursed Abu Sufyan. Abu Sufyan is in the fire of hell. So these are the people we know for certain. We know, for example, Al-Anbiya that are mentioned in the Quran, Wal-Awliya, Wal-Sadiqeen that are mentioned in narrations, are of Ahlul Jannah. But what we live with today, the people we are around today, who do you know is in the paradise and who do you know is in hell? You don't know. You only know about one person. Who? You know about yourself. My problem as an individual is, where will I be? Where will I be? Am I min Ahl al-Jannah or am I min Ahl al-Nar, rather than determine is this person right or is that person wrong? Where am I going to be? Al-Hassan ibn Ali alayhi salam was in a position where people, he was the first in this position after Amir al-Mu'mineen. Yani in this position where his own followers, and when we say his own followers, see Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, the Sahaba, some of them used to question him, but these Sahaba, minhum al-Mu'mineen wa minhum al-Munafiqeen, the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, some of them were believers, others were hypocrites. What is a hypocrite? In the clearest understanding, a hypocrite is someone who inside does not believe but shows you belief. Yani بتشوفه بالمسجد, he comes and prays, he fasts in Shahr Ramadan, he talks about the Quran, he talks about Islam, but inside he مش عابد شيء. He does not believe in a single thing, but he comes out and shows apparently that he is a believer. So the munafiqeen at the time of Rasulullah opposed him. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salamullah alayh, the people at his time were people that had given him allegiance, that fought against him. Then people that fought in his army fought against him. But Imam Hassan was different. It was unique, unlike any other person before him. His own followers turned against him. And I'm not saying people that were bad, people that later repented, they were actually good people. Because of the fitna. The fitna that was involved, even one of the best of the companions at the time, who was a companion of Rasulullah, a companion and a good companion, a mu'min and a shaheed. He died ala al-millah. He was the one that said to Imam Hassan, Ya mudilla al-mu'mineen, you have humiliated the believers. This is how big the fitna. He turned from this and repented. But he said this because he was put in a position where he decided, like any other human, he decided where I'm going to start and question things. Otherwise, we wouldn't learn from these lessons. You know, when we look at one of the grandest figures in Islam that we visit when we go overseas is Al-Hurr. Al-Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. And Al-Hurr was the one that prevented Imam Hassan alayhi salam from continuing, didn't he? Al-Hurr was the one that actually or effectively left them all to die by keeping them in Karbala. Yet look at his station. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, salamullah alayhi aydan, was also a companion that when Imam Hussein alayhi salam came into his region, he told them that if the Imam comes to ask me for something, I don't want to listen because I don't want to do what he wants. I don't want to hear his opinion. And eventually, just upon hearing one story, he turned towards the righteous, not only the righteous path. When we talk about Zuhair, you know, when you listen to the narrations of the Ma'araka, of Karbala, of Ashura, the standard bearer we know was Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. Who was ala al-Maymana? Who was the right flank, the chief of the right flank? Habib ibn Mudahir. Who did Imam Hussein put on the Maysara? Zuhair ibn al-Qayn was the chief on the left flank, and before, he didn't even want to turn. He didn't even want to. So there were people that were righteous, but they had moments where they slipped because they thought to question certain principles. When it comes to the Ma'soom, there's no question. If you get a hadith, or you get some narration, or you read some narration you don't understand, just put it aside. So I put it aside until I understand what it means. I just don't sit there and open a garbage bin. Yep, ma batfut bimokhi. Don't accept this. Just start throwing one after the other in the bin. In the end, you'll be left with nothing. I don't understand something. Put it aside. Because the time will come where you may understand it, or until the Holy Imam, maybe you're not meant to know. Maybe you're not meant to understand. But if I know something is factual and I turn away from it, this is where the problem begins, and this is where the problem came with Al-Hassan ibn Ali alayhi salam. And you need to remember, Al-Hassan ibn Ali, unlike Amir al-Mu'mineen, Al-Hassan ibn Ali was the grandson of Rasulullah. See, Amir al-Mu'mineen was the cousin of Rasulullah, whereas Al-Hassan was the firstborn, because the posterity of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam came through Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha. He was the firstborn of Rasulullah. So having this position, he would have a massive influence and the people would follow him. So what Banu Umayyah did, and Muawiyah, relentlessly, is they fabricated and they made narrations against the Imam. Of those narrations that were made, and this is what I wish to discuss, is the narration of where that they say that the Imam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, said to the people not to marry his son because he divorces a lot. Firstly, just to know, divorce is abhorred in Islam. And when I say it's disgusted. It's scorned, I should say. It's looked at with disgust. If someone mentions the D word, people walk away. They don't even mention divorce. Divorce is the last thing mentioned. You know, sometimes you sit with a couple and you're about to do the katbik tib, and they'll say, in the case of divorce, don't even say that. Tafa man halak. Don't say that word. Don't even mention that word. The only D word I have is, or TD, should be till death, as the Christians say, do us part. We're here forever. It's a forever thing. We don't get married to get divorced. Even in our culture, we have a saying, we say, عدوك اللي بيطلق بنتك. Your enemy is the one that divorces your daughter. It's looked at that poorly. It's terrible. For me to say that the grandson of Rasulullah, Sayyid Shababi Ahl al-Jannah, was a nabigha in talaq. He was an accomplished divorcer. This is what the narration is. And the problem is, this is the same Imam that walked 20 times from Medina to Mecca to perform Hajj. Medina to Mecca, 20 times, 400 kilometers. So he went 20 times to Hajj. The same Imam that did not even reach the age of 50. Did you know Imam Hassan, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, was martyred in his mid-40s? He didn't even reach the age of 50. Yet he was an accomplished divorcer according to this narration. But if we look at the narration that is mentioned, they say that Amir al-Mu'mineen got up on the mambar. And then we'll analyze it. He said, لا تزوجوا الحسن فإنه رجل مطلاق. Do not marry Al-Hassan because he is someone that divorces. He's a person that divorces a lot. Matlaq is someone that does it a lot. This is someone that always divorces. Now, before I continue the remainder of the hadith, because you always need to give the hadith justice by repeating the whole hadith. Firstly, just to get you started, this isn't a good way to be known. To be introduced as someone that just divorces a lot. Secondly, what kind of father goes around warning people against his son and his divorcing habits? When you do, all the ruwayat, when they say to give a maw'adha, you're supposed to give this maw'adha in private. If you are to give someone a maw'adha publicly, what does the hadith say? It says you humiliate them. When to give them a maw'adha, do it in private. You know, you shouldn't be divorcing all these people. Not get up and say, listen, don't marry my son because he has bad divorcing habits. You know, he drops it while it's hot. Gets married, see you later. Okay? And if this is permissible and it's good, then the imam shouldn't be exposing his son, and he shouldn't be admonishing his son publicly. And if it is forbidden, then how does Imam Hassan maintain the status of Sayyid Shabab Ahl al-Jannah and have such a reputation? So this either counters the infallibility either of Amir al-Mu'minin or Imam Hassan. If you look at it, if you analyze this hadith. Now, if you look at there's hadith, as we mentioned earlier, that you put aside. But then there's hadith that are blatant, that you cannot because they're contrary. Like, for example, if I tell you in Al-Kafi, it says that the Prophet missed out on Salat Subh. You've read this hadith, and the Sanad Sahih. It's authentic narration. That he woke up and missed out on morning prayers. Could you accept this? You can't. Even though the narration's authentic in the chain. But who says that this wasn't something mansus? It's not something that, because it doesn't go in line with all the other narrations. Especially when Allah Azza wa Jal, when He speaks to His messenger and He says that God knows that you're up for 2/3 of the night, or for half the night, or even a third, and even of the people that are with you, and even the mu'mineen with you, stay up 2/3 of the night. Is al-mu'min بيحيي تلتين الليل تلتي الليل أو نصفه أو ثلثه. If the mu'min, how does Rasulullah miss out on morning prayer? Even if the chain is solid. But if it's contrary to something that's strong, we don't accept it. The things I don't understand I put aside. But things like this, they need to be mentioned. Now, the narration then says, Inna al-Hasan, another hadith, before I continue, Ibn Ali, طلق 50 امرأة. فقام, so he says he divorced 50 women. Could you imagine this? 50 women. This is what the narration that accuses. فقام علي بالكوفة فقال يا معاشر أهل الكوفة لا تنكح الحسن فإنه رجل مطلاق. Do not marry him, for he is someone that divorces a lot. This is a hadith. And the people walk with this, even though, even Allah yarhamu Sayyid Ja'far Murtada al-Amali used to say this is one of the Yahudiyat, the ruwayat, the Yahudiyat, the Madsusin amongst our books. And Sayyid Ja'far needs no introduction. He is a Rajul Muhaqqiq and has this position. The reason I'm bringing this up, because every time it rears its ugly head, and I hear a lecture, someone get up and try and defend this hadith. This is why it's important for it to be countered and destroyed, because it's something that speaks in this way against the Imam. Okay. One of the arguments where they support it, because I need to be fair on the Mambar, although I'm strongly against it, let's look at the ones that support it. How do they support it? They say that after he said this, فَقَامَ إِلَيْهِ رَجُلٌ فَقَالَ بَلَى وَاللَّهِ لَنُنْكِحَنَّهُ فَإِنَّهُ ابْنُ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وآله وابن فاطمة فإن أعجبته أمسك وإن كره طلق. That a man came up and said that we will marry him because he's the son of Rasulullah. If he likes, he keeps, and if he doesn't like, he divorces. So this is what they say, that the Imam, and the arguments they say, is that the women would marry him for blessing. And they married Imam Hassan and they got blessed because they were the wives of Imam al-Hassan. Now, the problem of defending in this way, we remove the idea of till death do us part. We have removed this completely. It becomes just like, try before you buy. Marries, doesn't like, see you later, hit the road, Jack. You know what I mean? This is what it ends up becoming. Because think about this. These women that are getting married, they're not just going in for a taste test. They're getting married because they want to stay there. So the Imam am yakhsirhum bi khatirhun. When he gets married to them, says, see you later, you're divorced. Today if you divorce a woman, it's a travesty. Wallah, it's hard, even today. So imagine back then, when this is what's today, 90% of women work. You get rid of her, or thanks to Gough Whitlam in the 1970s, single mother's pension, it was his punishment, single mother's pension, the guy, Mish Ajib Abdullah, hit the road, Jack, see you later. I can do on my own, I don't need you. You're just a third wheel. This bike's balancing itself, see you later. And he keeps going. But back then, this was her means of subsistence. This is how she lived. So he was marrying them and getting rid of them. This is what we are trying to say. Now, in fact, the Umayyads at the time, if you won't find any hadith where they used this as an argument against the Imam when they debated with him. This all came back around very much later. And the ones that gained the most from making this hadith alive were Banu Abbas, because they were in conflict with Banu Hassan. So, but if we go down to, and I don't want to go into many of the other narrations, because I want to try and round it up, because it's a birth and I don't want to start slaughtering too many sheep up here. But if I want to look at divorce in Islam, just to give you an idea. عن أبي عبد الله عليه السلام الصادق عليه السلام إن الله عز وجل يحب البيت الذي فيه العرس. Allah loves the house that has a marriage in it. ويبغض البيت الذي فيه الطلاق. So Imam Hassan, according to narration, if you divorced 50 times, this is the same Imam. When we say about the house of his family, مختلف الملائكة. This is where the angels used to hang out. This is where the angels were. This house was hated 50 times by God. Could you imagine this enters your head? وَمَا مِن شَيْءٍ أَبْغَضَ إِلَى اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلْ مِنَ الطَّلَاقِ. This doesn't enter your head that he was divorcing all the time. Something Allah hated. Something Allah detested. When you look at divorce, imagine divorce as a demolition squad. Sometimes it's favorable. Sometimes if you're living in a house where it's decaying, and I'm talking, when they go, what's the word they always use? There's a word they always use. It's a toxic relationship. This has become a viral word. 2 words. Toxic I always hear every time in a relationship, and narcissistic. They're the 2 most common words I hear. And they say narcissistic, I go, I'm a narcissist. I love myself, everyone else loves themselves. I'll prove to you all narcissists. If on the day of judgment, there's 1 person allowed in paradise, and there's 1,000 of you, and God says, choose between you and the 1,000. Would you say, تفضل عمي لا أنا أفوت على جهنم? You will all run to paradise. We all love ourselves. A narcissist is someone that only loves himself in the actual meaning, the psychological meaning. He doesn't like anyone. He's a sociopath. He has no emotion for anyone. Now, unless you're a psychologist, please stop diagnosing people. When we say a toxic environment, if it is an actual toxic environment, let's demolish this house. This is not a house you want to raise children in. But a demolition squad for a house that is functioning is wrong. So when the idols of Quraysh were destroyed, Masjid Dirar was destroyed, this is a good thing. But destruction when it came to the shrines of Al-Baqiyah, this is a travesty. This is a calamity. This is catastrophic, to say the least. So we should understand how great divorce is, how greatly terrible it is. In fact, let's look at how Islam views divorce. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أيما امرأة سألت زوجها الطلاق في غير ما به بأس. So anytime a woman asks her husband for divorce, but God is not scornful, God is not wrathful. If there is a reason for it, if you're living with someone that is someone that you cannot live with, basically you're living with a person that doesn't provide, you're living with a person that's abusive, there's nothing, he brings nothing to the table. But if I'm living with someone that does bring something, there's functioning. So anytime a woman asks for the divorce, then he says, غَيْرَ مَا بِهِ بَأْسٍ. So sometimes there is a reason for it. فَحَرَامٌ عَلَيْهَا رَائِحَةُ الْجَنَّةِ. The scent of paradise is forbidden upon her just for asking for divorce for no reason. And we're talking about legitimate reason. Sometimes women will come up and say, listen, and this is, I get these cases. A woman will say, listen, I can't be with this guy anymore. Why can't you be with him? Well, people see me, they say, you're too hot for him. You're better looking than him. You can get better than him. And I go, who says this? These are things people say. Who says this? Other males? Other males see a tree and they get aroused. Are you serious? Do you get worried about you? You're looking at the opinion of a man over these issues? How can I even look at this? يحرم عليها رائحة الجنة. يحرم. This is the way, just for requesting. Even to the point when Allah speaks about the arsh. He mentions the Quran, al-arsh al-azim, the great throne, al-arsh al-kareem, the noble or honorable throne. This throne, we've got many times in narrations where this throne shakes. One of them says, إِذَا بَكَى الْيَتِيمُ اهْتَزَّ لَهُ الْعَرْشُ. If an orphan weeps, the throne of God shakes. And then, if a righteous person dies, هذا ولي من أولياء الله حقا اهتز عرشه الرحمن لموته. So a righteous person dies, the arsh of Allah shakes. وقال صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. He says, إذا مدح الفاجر اهتز العرش وغضب الرب. If someone praises an immoral person, a tyrannical person, a despotic person, an evil person, the throne of God shakes. So if the throne of God shakes for when the orphan weeps, when a righteous person dies, when an immoral person, a decadent person is praised, we know it's a bad thing. Then we get a hadith عن الرسول صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. He says, تزوجوا ولا تطلقوا فإن الطلاق يهتز منه العرش. Divorce shakes the throne of God. So Imam Hassan shook the throne 50 times or more. How can I accept something like this? There are prominent scholars that support this. But more scholars and their argumentation, the majority reject this because of obvious reasons that as I have shown you. Just to finish off, because I don't want to get, I don't want to get too much, let's see, be as polite as possible. I don't want to get too many estrogen messages. I want to be as polite as possible. There is a time for someone to get divorced. There is a time for someone to get divorced. There are reasons for someone to get divorced. And it's not we're saying there isn't. There are positions. Some people out there are villainous. They're evil. They shouldn't be even allowed to look after a bicycle, let alone get married or have children. They shouldn't even be allowed to have children. These types of people, they exist. Yeah, we do know there are reasons. But for me, just to mizaj, if you know someone, honestly, Allah, you know something, someone mizaj, he gets married, he gets divorced. Who would even like, in the community, is anyone like him? How can I accept this when it's applicable, in this case, to the Imam? One of the most important things, and I'll finish off with this, is that before I get married, it is important for you to look at what a marriage is and how to have a successful marriage. If someone contacted me and asked me, I'll go through it from A to Z. I don't mind. If someone says, listen, I've got a group of people wishing to get married, come sit with us, and we'll go through how for you to have a successful marriage, how for you to live a good marriage. You know, and I'll even put in extra pointers. The quarrel of lovers is a renewal of love, which is an idiom. Yeah, you're gonna have issues. This is normal. But the idea that this is an acceptable thing and a thing that the Imam frequented is far from Islamic teachings. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us the opportunity to visit the shrine of Abi Muhammad al-Hassan ibn Ali al-Mushtaba salawatullahi wa salamu alayh, and grant us his intercession on the Day of Judgment. We ask Allah to hasten the reappearance of our master Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hassan al-Mahdi. Arwahuna fida.